Signal has a big problem. I didn't think it would come to this, but things are headed in a weird direction. Signal needs to face some serious criticism because the recent conduct has been raising eyebrows across the cybersecurity and privacy communities. And the biggest disappointment in all of this is that Signal has been warned about this for years, but they just refuse to listen, and they are still refusing to listen. It may very well be that Signal's consistently stubborn leadership and development will turn it into just another project that once used to deliver on their promises, only to break them all a few years later when new monetization opportunities suddenly became too lucrative to ignore. So what's going on? Well, it starts with this. Signal is a free and open source software. This means that not only does Signal come without a price tag, but anyone can copy Signal's source code and make their own version of it. None of these Signal clones would be able to talk to Signal users, but they still can have a solid copycat using the hard work of someone else. If you're new to the FOSS movement, you might be thinking, aren't you shooting yourself in your foot if you give away your app for free but also let anyone else copy your hard work? Good question, but you're missing the point. It's only unfair in the world dominated by proprietary software. But even then, making Signal proprietary would be the final nail in the coffin. FOSS is a necessity when choosing privacy-focused software. FOSS is also necessary for your end-user freedoms, but more on that later. While not always bug-free or user-friendly, it's the only way to verify what the app on your phone actually does, how it treats your data, and how valid their security claims are. It doesn't automatically mean that every FOSS app is inherently more secure than every proprietary app, but if we want real guarantees for protecting our privacy, free and open source is the only way. If all software was open, we wouldn't need Edward Snowden running away from unjust punishment for disclosing government surveillance.
If I end up in chains in Guantanamo, I can live with that.
We would know about it without whistleblowers because the source code of all of those big tech apps from Apple, Google, or Microsoft would be open for audit, and we would see their backdoor. That sounded wrong. But it does raise another question. How can anyone make money if they have to give away their work for free? This time, that's a fair question. Open source has struggled to come up with sustainable business models. Most of the time, the default answer is just donations. Apps I'm using on a daily basis to make my videos, from research to audio production, are free and open source software with donation-based business models. But these are massive projects with up to millions of users and relatively low marginal increases in cost with rising user base. But for most open source projects, donations don't cut it. You can only blame the big tech. Users have been spoiled by not having to pay for services or apps. Buy a new phone and it already comes pre-bundled with a bunch of proprietary software that you can use at no additional cost. Even though you pay premiums for hardware, corporations still ask for more, so they introduce ads and trackers into your phone that follow and quantify everything you're doing to need profiles. This is why many open source projects have tried to introduce pricing. Usually they offer a base level for free, with additional features unlocked by upgrading to paid plans. Email providers like Tutanode or ProtonMail are good examples. This makes perfect sense because they still give away their apps and encryption for free, but if users want more storage or extra features like custom domains, they can pay up. Free service functions like a promo to lure more people in, and premium plans are what pays the bills. Private messenger Threema is one of Signal's biggest contenders when it comes to privacy and security promises. Yet, Threema only offers their app for a flat one-time fee with no free version. Gatekeeping users like this behind a paywall is a major problem for some case-sensitive threat models that cannot afford to make purchases through official app stores. This strategy may be bold, but messaging is not cheap, especially if it's bundled with group chats, calls, file sharing, and other high bandwidth features. Features you'll find in Signal, and yet you still don't have to pay anything no matter how intensely you burden the app. But Signal wasn't always like this. It started as a simple, clean messenger with strict focus on providing the most secure communication protocol to users with no technical skills. Signal was designed as a foolproof end-to-end encryption protocol, and for that effort it received a lot of praise. Laura Poitras, whom Edward Snowden contacted to leak the NSA documents, praised it as the most scalable encryption tool we have. At the time, that claim made a lot of sense. If you're just handling text messages, the bandwidth isn't going to be such a dramatic issue. You can still find this quote today on Signal's website, yet everything about what used to make Signal scalable has changed. Signal's business model has remained the same. Donations.
We really like the nonprofit structure, and we really like the, sort of donations and grants business model. There's no plan to get any other investment. What I want to do is I want to earn people's donations.
That was Brian Acton, a founder of WhatsApp, who sold his company to Facebook and then fled when he suddenly realized Facebook is bad for user privacy, as if that had never been known before then. In 2018, Acton injected $50 million to Signal Foundation, a tax-exempt nonprofit, which then extended to a $100 million zero-interest loan. This sounds like a lot of money that will come with some strings attached, but Acton is a billionaire and 50 mil is peanuts for him. But for Signal, this could mean years of growth and development and potential adoption. But then, this happened. The world's richest memer tweets about Signal and all of the Sims follow Daddy's words like gospel. Signal basically doubled their user base over the span of a few days, and their servers crashed under the overload of such an influx.
It's very expensive. If you have millions of users texting one another, that's okay. But then add images. If you have like a group of 10 people and you share an image of 5 megabytes, suddenly they have to cover 50 megabyte of bandwidth. And then they added voice calling, video calling, and now group video calling. And these are all super cool features, but it's expensive.
You just heard David from Safing.io, whom I sat down with on his podcast to discuss business models of open source and privacy alternatives. Seeing Signal's expansion, I was delighted for the app to finally make it a mainstream. I even converted some of my contacts to use Signal because its security and privacy features are solid. Institutional adoption have been pouring in from governments, departments, organizations, and even political parties introducing Signal as their standard communication method. But then Signal decided to sort of tweak their business model, and they decided to do something that makes a lot of people, including me, question whether Signal deserves our praise and trust. The MobileCoin.
What bums me out is like Signal seems to have the same attitude in terms of, okay, we have to scale, otherwise a competitor might become bigger than us. This 100 million loan or investment from Brian Acton would easily cover years and years of a few million users writing text messages. But then when you scale things up, that runway will shrink. And the same thing when you explode like they did in early 2021 now. They doubled their user base pretty much in a month, and that will shrink their runway by the half again, and they have to figure something out, and they will evaluate shady options as well, and that leads us to the MobileCoin.
A new cryptocurrency project supposedly designed to offer fast and secure mobile payments while respecting user privacy. And everything that could have gone wrong with this project have gone so terribly wrong. On the surface, MobileCoin sounds like a solid solution. It basically adopts Monero's fundamental anonymity features that make their blockchain opaque and impossible to trace, while still maintaining the irreversibility feature of blockchain transactions. Despite giving Monero developers absolutely no credit whatsoever when basically copying their work, MobileCoin has implemented some additional features to achieve that user-friendliness ideal. Signal could have adopted Monero, but there was a limitation. You have to wait 20 minutes for 10 block confirmations to have your funds freed for new transfer. This means if your contact sends you some Monero, you have to wait until 10 blocks have been mined before you can spend it. For Signal, waiting 20 minutes is far too long, so they decided to do this in under 5 seconds. But at what cost? Well, to achieve that speed, MobileCoin runs a different consensus mechanism based on the centralized Stellar protocol. To validate transactions, validators have to run special, very expensive, and proprietary Intel SGX chips, riddled with zero-day security vulnerabilities, to create a secure enclave on their MobileCoin nodes and approve transactions. The gist of this is that MobileCoin is a direct opposite of what Bitcoin or Monero are trying to achieve. You see, Bitcoin and Monero are permissionless blockchains. Anyone can use them to mine, run a node, or transact without needing any permission from any authority. It enforces decentralization by design. With MobileCoin, you cannot mine it and you cannot run your node. That is reserved only to the selected validators who are only approved by the MobileCoin Foundation. All you can do is transact and pay the fees, all of which go to MobileCoin Foundation. So yes, Signal has managed to achieve fast transactions, but they completely threw decentralization, the main pillar of Bitcoin or Monero, out of the window. This means that MobileCoin validators will be able to see and censor transactions if they so choose. Signal claims they will not have access to your full transaction history, which technically says they could still see your individual transactions. But all of the privacy promise of MobileCoin relies on your full trust in the centralized entity of MobileCoin validators. They could break it at any point, especially considering the fact that the pressure won't come just from the law enforcement, but also financial regulators, fraud investigation, and crackdown on illegal funding. In other words, Signal had a simple and clean app that was easy to audit and didn't attract too much unwanted attention that now will be investigated by every three-letter government agency on the planet. Is Signal going to allow people under terrorist investigation or slapped with economic sanctions on their platform? I don't think so. MobileCoin could have avoided it, but didn't because they decided to go a different route. The entire MobileCoin supply is pre-mined. That means the total number of mobile coins that can ever exist already exists, and it's 250 million. Currency supply is one of the standard ways of rewarding miners or stakers for decentralizing the network. Yet MobileCoin's white paper has no mention on how it wants to reward validators, as they are neither mining nor staking any mobile coin. Which means validators could potentially turn to some other ways of monetizing the transaction data they have access to. Because MobileCoin isn't all about privacy and financial freedom. Because at MobileCoin, we believe governments have a legitimate interest in regulating the economic lives of their citizens. Satoshi must be cringing so hard right now. But wait, there is more! This pre-mine happened right at launch back in 2017, when they also sold 15% of the total supply to private investors for 80 cents a pop, raising 30 million, mostly from Binance-backed fundraising. When the project was about to launch this spring, the price surged to over $66 before taking a dump overnight to $39. Which sounds a lot like a scheme where you pump something really high and then you drop it down as fast as possible, but I'm not sure what the name is. Anyway, this perfectly legitimate and legal plan has worked out great, except nobody in the US or being a US citizen was allowed to touch MobileCoin because the SEC doesn't like it when cryptocurrencies create a money supply portion of which goes to private investors for some really unknown and totally mysterious reason. But wait, there is still more. 50% of MobileCoin supply can now be purchased from buymobilecoin.com, and it also trades on FTX. But if you're just a regular peasant, you can only buy 1,000 euros in MobileCoin a day or 5k a year. But if you are a business that can demonstrate the need for more, you can purchase up to 100,000 euros in MobileCoin annually. What a cryptocurrency revolution, making financial systems equal to all. But hold on, there is way more. Nobody knows how many mobile coins there are in circulation, or how many of them are owned by the MobileCoin Foundation, or Signal, or individual developers. There is no market cap available because nobody knows the current market supply. So even if you want to trade MobileCoin, you have no way of predicting price movements with a key variable missing from the equation of your technical analysis. But wait! There is even more! Hi, I'm Joshua, and I started MobileCoin to fund Signal. Following the backlash, the CEO of MobileCoin, Josh2600, decided to do an AMA on Hacker News. And it went exceptionally just as well as you'd expect. Avoiding answers to questions directly, failing to address pump-and-dump accusations, and most of all, not explaining the relationship between Moxie, the founder of Signal, with MobileCoin. Oh right, we are still talking about Signal, aren't we? So where does Signal development fit into all of this? Well, nobody knows for sure. Joshua2600 swears that Moxie has never been an officer at MobileCoin. He was just a technical advisor. But there is a white paper. There is two white papers. There is one white paper, but there is a nearly identical copy that mentions Moxie as a CTO at MobileCoin. Joshua2600 swears by his mother's grave that it's not a real white paper, and that the real one is true. The one that was created about 2 days later after the first. All we have is to take them for their word. We don't really know what the true scale of their relationship is. Signal and Moxie claim they don't hold MobileCoin, so everything's clear. But they are going to be getting paid by MobileCoin transaction fees, so it's not like there is no conflict of interest there. That's the same as having an affiliate link alongside a non-affiliated link on your YouTube videos. But don't go anywhere, there is one more thing, one more nail in the coffin. The final nail in the coffin. Signal is no longer open source. What? Before the release of MobileCoin, Signal's server code hadn't been updated on GitHub for almost a year. Their repo was full of complaints about why Signal wasn't publishing their server code. Signal gave absolutely no explanation, until one day they dumped a year-long code with the announcement of MobileCoin. The apps and the protocol have always been open source, but the server code wasn't for a year, which does set a dangerous precedent. Signal is willing to go proprietary if they so choose and whenever they so choose. There is no other way to describe this behavior other than arrogant and despicable. Signal is willing to put the user's safety on the line in exchange for expansion and growth. How is this any different from the rest of the big tech? It isn't. Signal could have gone about it in a different way. They could have joined the Matrix protocol, but they stubbornly refused. Moxie stubbornly refused. Matrix isn't a messaging platform, it's a new interoperable protocol that doesn't rely on any central server or any single app. This would offload a lot of costs that Signal currently has. It's like email, but for messaging and with end-to-end encryption built in. But Moxie rejected Matrix simply because it's harder to manage a decentralized protocol than a centralized app. Instead of giving users choice of whom they want to trust their data with, Signal chose the path of centralization. MobileCoin only reflects the true values of Signal. Less user choice, less freedom, but more centralized control for the sake of efficiency. I was hoping that maybe one day Signal would change their mind and join Matrix, but this is a final confirmation for me that it won't change. We can't keep hopping from one platform into another when they betray our trust. The only sustainable and long-term solution is an open source and decentralized protocol. Centralization is what's killing the internet and is turning it into TV. If Moxie thinks he's a better person than anyone else and isn't susceptible to the pressure of centralized power, he has failed to prove it. And just like I've been painstakingly migrating my contacts to Signal, I will be migrating them to Matrix. Privacy is not a product you can sell. It's a right you cannot achieve without freedom, and decentralization is a prerequisite of that freedom. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this format and let me know what you think about it. Please support this channel by engagement, likes, comments, shares, and if you are feeling extra generous, you can donate with my crypto wallets or Patreon. Thanks, bye.